3.0 and Ashokanta is here who has standing corrected that there is no more industry 4.0. We're going to 5.0 and 6.0. Right? Digital health. We have Dr. Sachdeva with us to talk about and give us insights about technology is changing healthcare. COVID we have all seen, right? Right from your consultations going online to now prescriptions also being written online and they are valid now. Earlier they were illegal. Right? Deep tech research. We have Dr. Vandana Sharma, who is among the top 2 Stanford scientists, and she'll talk about the deep tech and women and STEM and telecom infrastructure and startup aspiration. From 500 plus startups to 200,000 startups and still counting with women representing and coming in. I am an entrepreneur after 27 years of industry, from teaching technology to training technology to selling technology. I created Mahananda University Consultancy Private Limited. So walking the talk of entrepreneurship and women led. Our directors are also women. And we have my team is here, Dhruv and Anushka, you can just stand up. We believe in equality and equity. So I have both a male and a female today here representing our teammates here. So coming back to the topic, we are talking about building the future of India, the future of the world. We all are part of global workforce now. But I must ask, who's holding that right? Women today are just not the participants in technology. You have it here itself on this dais. They are researchers, they are patent holders, they are clinicals, they are the ecosystem architect. Yeah. What Sarika data showed was just 1% of us represented in the workforce. That is sad. Right? We should say that is not that. Let's just change it. Let's just see how we can change it. So, when the representation of 50% of population lags behind, definitely the system has certain. The system needs to change. And what needs to bring that change? How that change needs to be done? Maybe we can leave some food for thought today with this panel discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you, this session is not whether women belong to technology. It is about how women define technology. And let's begin by understanding what the future looks like. So, Sarika, I bring you into this discussion now. How ready is Indian industry for women-led technology innovation?
Thank you, Shweta, first for raising up this important question. When you say how ready, I will put my answer in 2 perspectives. I'll start with that while I'm confident that we are moving in that direction, I've talked about the numbers only in my presentation. So when we speak here, we represent as a women tech force almost 32 to 35% of the women tech force is there. So that numbers are happening. And there are reasons to it. Couple of reasons I highlighted in my presentation that people are able to pursue more of STEM education. In fact, India stands for one of the major countries who is having the highest number of STEM enrollments that is there. So we are growing big whether we talk about the women getting the technical education, Shweta, when you asked about it. So that things are moving in forward, and we see good results like Dipali talking about it. So similarly, when you talk about large enterprises, so there is a DEI policy from the government. So whether it's diversity, equity, or inclusiveness, you're supposed to look into that policy. So large corporates in any case are doing so. Secondly, when we talk about the IT skill force, again, 1/3 of the IT skill force is women. So all those things are positives which are moving in direction. And when we talk about the entrepreneurship, startups in New York, it's an example. So we are having I would say, the environment which is getting more favorable, and we are working in that direction. All these things are happening, and when we talk about our country, we do understand that we are our median age is around, say, 30 or so. So when we talk about that level, the receptivity or how the balance thing is more well taken care of versus when you talk about the past where the median age was say 40s or something. So we are around in 30s currently. That is also very much in favor. The technical growth is giving us lots of flexibility, whether what kind of roles coming up, the flexibility in working and all these areas. And then there is a business case which is there, which I talked at length in my presentation. That we do understand that it is more about not the societal impact, it's more about the economic impact as well. So whether you talk about getting the right innovation, getting the right stakeholders in the project. So all those things are happening. But that's a very good part of the story which needs to be further taken forward. Keeping in mind the couple of things which I mentioned, that the biases which come in, whether we talk about the system biases or we talk about the societal biases or the disabilities which a women has to face in. So if those things are well taken care of, this can be accelerated at a very strong pace. And I think, and it's a ripple effect. It's kind of a ripple effect. Like for example, if you give an opportunity a person to just join them, to go to a senior level, I'm looking for them motivated. And when I say motivate, it's giving them the right equity. I'm not talking about the word motivation. I'm talking about, and it will include all those things such as sponsorship, fair transparency and transparent promotion metrics, and whether you are available on the drinks or the late night shifts or not, doesn't matter, your qualification or your strength. So that is something which is digital, but technology is playing a huge role in it because it's getting you the environment for this. There's lots of, when I talk about biasness, technology too also helps in killing the biases. So that is something which is going on. So I see moving it good, progressively, but we need to accelerate it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's very insightful that technology is creating the bridge between the haves and has not, between the genders. Because who's behind the computer doing coding does not matter if the code runs the programs. Right? So thank you so much for this insight. And I come to you, Vandana. You are, co-founded a manufacturing company. You are into telecom and infrastructure and totally male dominated because I was part of Tech Mahindra where I know what was the environment and how the gender was skewed, but you are leading that company, right? So first of all, what motivated you to be in this space? And second, what was your journey? What were the structural challenges and the barriers you had to overcome to make your mark and be where you are today? So over to you.
First of all, thank you Mobility and Sovereignty for having me here. This is the third time I'm here and what a change. The first time I came, there were very few of us here, maybe 5 or 6, and I see the number of women has really increased. So that is what women are doing. So definitely as Sarita ji was said, has said कि बहुत कुछ हो रहा है, गवर्नमेंट कर रही है, कोर्ट के पीछे कुछ नहीं है. मैं एक चीज़ ऐड करूँगी, women खुद बहुत कुछ कर रही हैं यहाँ तक आने के लिए. So yeah. So about me, brought up in middle class family, वो एक इंजीनियर या डॉक्टर ही बनना था, इंजीनियर बनते थे because dad was an engineer. दिमाग बिल्कुल लगा नहीं था honestly. और जॉब किया नॉर्मल और कहीं कुछ करना था, कुछ दिमाग लगाया सॉफ्टवेयर करते, सॉफ्टवेयर इज द इजीएस्ट राइट एंड स्टार्ट कर दिया. वो फाउंडर साथ में ले लिया सो दैट इट्स काइंड ऑफ अ कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री थिंग. एंड देन द रियलिटी स्ट्राइक्स राइट. आपने इन चीजें ऐड की, वी एडेड टेलीकॉम एंड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर टू आवर पोर्टफोलियो एंड देन द रियलिटी रियली स्टार्ट. बिकॉज चाहे आप अपने ऑफिस में जाएं या आप क्लाइंट के पास जाएं या आप मार्केट में जाएं, there were very few women, and you are always judged, you are always taken as somebody who has come from the support department, HR या उस तरह से कोई आ रही है, finance से शायद कुछ junior आ रहे हैं. They don't look at you, they would look at your people, the team that is going with you. There will always be a kind of bias, an automatic thing. I didn't think much about it. अब जब ये questions आते हैं तब आप सोचते हो हाँ यार हुआ तो था ऐसा कुछ. Because I thought I was in my own world. That this is something I have to build. This is something I have to do. मेरा next step क्या है? How do I have to deliver? There were things that I sort of said okay things will happen. In fact, I'm an engineer from IIT Kurukshetra. वहाँ पे भी लड़कियाँ कम थी. I think we were very few women, so I just thought this is the way it is, right? Never sort of realized कि अच्छा ऐसा हो सकता है कि women equal हो सकते हैं. It's just the way you are brought up, the way the life happened. So I just stuck to what I had to do, kept delivering and focused on my work, and that is where we have been able to grow. We have a pan-India presence. We are in telecom services, system integration services, software is still doing that. We are trying to go global. 17 years into being. So I think that is where we've been. But one thing I realized when Sarika ji was mentioning that she kept on figuring out कौन women है entrepreneurs, कौन leaders हैं for last 20 years, and she did not get one. I think I still have not made my mark there for her to find me out. So maybe there is still some, where the issues are. So the serious note, the thing that we still lack is how do we market ourselves. We are not very good at informal networks. We are not good there. So I think that is still something I need to learn. And I've learned on my way and got some good mentors and got some good guides, include men. So that is the story.
So thank you, Anand. You actually proved my point right. In that case, मेरा question यही था, why do you have to market yourself? Why can't you have advocates for yourself? Why can't it be done by people who are not women but others also whom you would have attracted and made the voice heard? And that's your case in example. I'm saying it's for everything we do. Why we don't have to prove ourselves, right? And like you said, I'm also an engineer. And then I also joined the engineering. Hardly 2-3 girls and rest was all. I was in electronics. Still I'm not a mechanical engineer where you would hardly find a girl. Yeah, so I was in electronics. So still okay. But what we need is हम तो कर ही रहे हैं. That is why we are here. We believe in that. That is why we are here. We have made it to something, and that is why we are here. But we need people who believe in us and talk about us, beyond ourselves.
Let me just add a marketing targa to it because that's what I do. जो दिखता है वो बिकता है और बिकने के लिए दिखना जरूरी है. And I think this is the only thing I learned in 2 years of my management education. जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, right? Now the thing which we add from Mahanadya is right जगह पे दिखना जरूरी है, right light पे दिखना जरूरी है, and perception matters because that what ultimately would make you sellable at a higher price, right? So with this, let me bring an interesting fact about the UNESCO Science Report. This is 2021, which states that women account for roughly 1/3 of researchers globally, and very few are patent holders. And I'm proud that I'm sitting next to one which has just got a patent, a copyright awarded today while we were sitting here. So huge round of applause for Dr. Vandana. And my question also comes to you, Vandana ji. You operate at the intersection of research and deep tech innovation. So what differentiates globally recognized women researchers in deep tech?
So hi everyone, I'm Dr. Vandana Sharma, waiting for my turn too. I've been actually waiting since morning, and when I was listening to my co-panelists, everybody was sharing their viewpoints, and I was going back forth in my childhood and coming back to what I am today here. Lot of memories. So you were talking about deep tech now. So I'm coming from academic background, and I have been mentoring my students irrespective of gender. I don't see any gender. I don't see a boy or a girl. I just see they are my students and they are stuck somewhere. And because they are stuck somewhere, I have to mentor them out from their notions, their apprehensions, their fear. This is what I have been doing last 17 years. And deep tech. Now today, universities are already including entrepreneurship, they're including mentorship, they're including industry verticals and industry people from various verticals to be part of the curriculum. But we need more and more such initiatives. We need one common platform. This is, I think, the right platform where I can talk about this common grounds. Because you people have ideas and resources, and maybe you require right resources, human resources to engage in, and we are the one who can provide that human resource to you with the right skill set. Our students are very much skilled today, and we are in the era of generative AI. Please do not forget that. So today, coding is nobody's doing coding, but everybody is generating coding. And coming up with a nicer idea, coming up with a nicer, any case study or any kind of implementation that you want to do, you can do it in 24 hours. I have seen that myself. So we are in an era of LLMs and generative AI, and what I see in the deep tech is cybersecurity as the major area which is going to be the next 20 years. Everybody is going to be either working, either providing services or providing products in the era of cybersecurity, because everybody wants to be secure. And we are in the world of digital. We are connected virtually most of the time. We hardly see events which are happening in person. Not many people are joining. This is what the scenario is. And we are connected virtually, and security is always a concern when we are sharing online. So this is going to be the next deep tech in which the people, students, even the companies are going to work in. So this is where I want to, so these two things I want from this panel discussion, that if there is any common platform for students, for graduate students who can be part of the industry verticals, getting right mentorship at the right time so that we can stop that leakage. What we were talking about, 43% leakage or 26% leakages at the graduate level, and it is happening. And I feel very bad when I see my students not getting the right opportunity, although they are very much skilled. So this is something which I want. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Vandana, and let me bring you, Dr. Sheetal, into discussion. Healthcare and healthcare innovation. Do we see gaps in research and design, Dr. Sheetal? And what gaps remain in women-centric health tech innovation today?
Thanks, Shweta, and it's always good to have a friend on the other side. The thing is that we have to understand that technology itself only does not drive the healthcare. It's the people who drive the healthcare. Second thing is that any innovation has to be inclusive, it has to be ethical, and it has to be humane. Now, we do, as a clinician, face many lacunae and many gaps in healthcare. The first being that most of the studies are male-centric. They focus on males, increasing incidence of stroke, cardiovascular disease. Whenever you see the study design, somehow they are obsessed with that. So most of them are featuring the male part. Second thing is that our obsession with pregnancy and postpartum. Most of the studies, most of the care, in fact in our OPDs also, we cater to pregnant females. If I look at the OPD numbers of non-pregnant females, females coming to us with menopause, adolescent health problems, PCOS, endometriosis, that is far less. So that is, the same way goes for the technology as well. So technology also focuses on pregnancy and pregnancy-related issues. It is not bothered too much about adolescent healthcare, which is, or menopause for that matter. Third is the digital inequality. There are two classes right now in India. One is the digitally connected and they are or digitally empowered, the literate urban population among the females, or the digitally disconnected, the rural population, the illiterate population, or maybe the elderly ladies, who are not connected to the digital healthcare. So that is another challenge, and that is another lacuna or gap which we come across. The last challenge I would say would be that many femtech tools, they enter the market without robust peer review. You would look at any apps, anybody can make an app, flow app, whatever, and they predict the ovulation, they predict the fertility days. Nobody actually comes to us I don't think, they are reviewed by any peer or any clinician. Do they actually make sense, or how accurate they are? I mean, I have seen so many females in my OPD who are crying, who are so distressed that my ovulation kit does not show that I'm ovulating. And then we have to reassure them that technology doesn't tell you everything, so you have to correlate it with a human touch. So these are the challenges, which we come across on day-to-day basis.
So as ma'am said that technology is not helping much, or maybe is not giving the right results. One reason here is that in clinical practices, the data of patients are not being shared with the research. So if the data, or maybe a pilot study, if it is being shared with us, or maybe with our students, definitely our applications, what we are building, is going to make wonders. So this is also a challenge for us. So just imagine that the platform again we are in, you're from medical and I'm from education, and that too from technology. So I need data to improvise my application, and you need a better application to improvise your,
Just one school of thought that we feel that as whenever you are devising something, or you are formulating a study, then you should make us part of when you are considering what problem you want to address. Generally we are approached at the end of it. Once you have devised a study, once you have done it, then we are approached. I think we should be part of the team as clinicians. If it's in the beginning itself, is this problem really relevant, or how relevant it is? So, thank you.